This is Rostra, the St. Theodore Guerin Junior Classical League podcast, where we bring the lessons of classical study into the light for the benefit of all. Welcome back to another episode of Rostra. We've got another one of these episodes where we got two guests. We got Owen, Nielsen, Carson, Hess with us, and no insult to all the other guests, but I got to say, you guys have picked perhaps my favorite topic. Love this topic, love this individual. So many great things about this guy. This could be an hour, 2 hours, multi-part episode. We've just got a few minutes. So first of all, what is your topic and why did you guys pick it?
Alexander the Great.
Nice little stereo effect there. Okay, so Alexander the Great, why did you guys pick Alexander?
I don't know. I just like watching the TikToks and the edits are just so tough. It just looks so cool.
Okay.
He's the most influential man. Like, he conquered everything, you know? Who wouldn't want to conquer everything?
Who wouldn't want to conquer everything? And then, certainly well known, and I don't know how Alexander himself would think about the fact that you are intrigued by him because of TikTok. Of course, his first response would be, what's a TikTok? But anyhow, lots of great stuff. So, who was he? First of all, where in the world is this guy from?
It was from a Greek. He's like a Greek military leader, and he grew up like through royalty. His parents were both part of royalty, and he ascended to the throne eventually.
Exactly right. Yeah. So just north of Greece, Macedonia. Right. Father was King Philip. So you're right. He was raised in royalty there. So move on from there. I mean, really life takes off for him once he becomes king.
I heard, like, his dad was a king, and then it was going to get passed to someone else, and then he got all his friends together and killed the person that was supposed to get passed to so he could be the king.
So there's a lot of stories about this. We don't know 100% of what's going on. We know that there was some bad blood between Alexander and his dad. We know that his father did have a son by someone else, and there was some worry that maybe it would pass to that kid. That kid was a boy at the time. And then somebody murdered Alexander's father, and historians have wondered for 2,000 years, did Alexander do it? Did Alexander have it done? Did somebody from a foreign power, and we'll get into, I'm sure, talking about the kingdom of Persia in a moment, or the empire of Persia. Did somebody else do it? Whatever happened, Philip's dead, and so Alexander becomes king. Okay, so what happens after this? And he's still a fairly young man.
He did not die. He died at a very young age.
Yeah, just short of age 33. So not really a whole lot older than you guys when he took the throne. So what happens after he becomes king?
He vastly expanded his empire and promoted many of his cultures over into Persia, which was probably one of his harshest enemies. But there wasn't much, the world wasn't as big as we know now, but he basically conquered most of the known world.
And that's, of course, the key word to say, the known world, right? Obviously, they didn't know about Indiana. They didn't know about Alaska, right? But in terms of what they knew of the world, absolutely. And you mentioned this kingdom of Persia. I keep saying kingdom, I mean empire. Do you guys find out where is Persia? Where was Persia in terms of the modern world?
It's like Syria. It's like Syria, Iraq, Iran.
Iraq and Iran, all that area, Afghanistan, all that kind of area. All of that was united as one empire back in the day, the Persian Empire. So here is little Alexander, king of Macedonia, leads his Greek army to go attack the Persian Empire. How does that go?
Pretty good. He'd never lost the war. He did have a few setbacks in battle, but basically almost all of his battles were victorious.
Which is extraordinary because his troops were always outnumbered, greatly outnumbered by the Persians, and yet his guys would win time after time after time. Just massive, massive success.
They said it might have been because of they had advanced military weapons, more advanced. They said they had these 20-foot long sticks or something that they use.
Oh yeah, let's talk about those sticks. So those things were called a sarissa,
Yeah.
and the Macedonians were known for these things. So they are ginormous, and if you can imagine, thousands of guys holding these ridiculously long spears, it makes for like a giant moving porcupine.
You can't do anything against that.
You can't do anything against that. So that was a huge thing, very well trained. Plus, a lot of the guys fighting for the great king of Persia, quite frankly, were either enslaved or were mercenaries, and so there's not necessarily a lot of loyalty there. So a lot going for the Greeks, and as a result, tremendously successful. Okay, a lot of military guys have been successful. They don't all get the nickname the Great, right? So why does Alexander, from things that you read, any of the things he did, why would he get referred to down through history as the Great?
Well, it's basically his conquest and his brains and bronze, because as a military leader, he like stands above all. He's still looked at as a remarkable leader, general, and for his achievements that he achieves in the ancient world.
Like, nobody's done that since him. Taking over the whole world that they knew.
Take over the whole world, and of course this is an audio podcast, so people can't see this, but we've got maps up in our room. And when you think about just the thousands of miles of territory, and of course this is all on foot, somewhat on horseback, but still, no obviously motorized vehicles, that's a tremendous distance to keep your men together, keep your men focused on the goal at hand. And so, yeah, that alone is extraordinary. And again, as you mentioned, his young age, the fact that he did this so early on. So there are so many great stories about Alexander we could get into. But let's kind of cut to the end, and then we may kind of come back to the middle. Did you find out anything about how he died?
Well, they say it's like a disease, or he could have been poisoned, but people don't like to say disease because, like, a great man's not going to die like a little disease, So.
You don't like to think of that,
Yeah.
right? Well, this great guy conquered the world and then got the flu and died or something.
Yeah.
You don't want to think about it in that way. But the question is, was he murdered? Was he poisoned? We don't know. We know that he died of some sort of, we'll call it illness, because it wasn't in war, right? He didn't get like a spear through the head or something like that in war. So we know that he wasn't stabbed to death, that kind of assassination. We're just not 100% sure. Okay, so like I said, there are so many stories about Alexander. In fact, after he died, people started writing stories about him, and then some of them actually turned into what almost today you and I would call comic book story kind of stuff. Just ridiculous stories. And people almost turned him into this superhero-like character, and even kind of writing fiction about it. But in terms of actual things, any neat stories or things you came across, either things that he did or encountered or anything like that you think would be good to share?
I heard something about how, like, he had these, like, different towns, and he named, like, every single one of them about himself, and he named one of them about his horse.
So let's talk about both aspects of that. So one of the things you do if you're out conquering is you need to leave some people behind. So you move through an area, you conquer it, you move on. Well, you don't want then people behind you who could then attack you from the rear, right? So you got to leave some people behind that are going to be friendly to you, so you don't get attacked that way. So he plants all these cities all over the place, and he just starts naming them all Alexandria. Why not, right? I mean, you're conquering the world anyhow. Of course, the famous Alexandria, the really famous one. You guys know where that one was? It was home to a famous library.
I know about the library. It's like, I don't know.
It was in Egypt. So the really famous Alexandria was in Egypt, but there were lots of Alexandrias, as you said. And then even naming one after his horse. So great story. He and his horse, if anybody listening to this is a pet lover, an animal lover, you got to love the deal that Alexander and his horse were together since he was a boy. His father got him this horse. The horse was really wild. And Alexander,
they said no one could tame it but
Yeah.
Alexander the Great.
Alexander was, even as a boy, he was able to tame it because he realized the horse was scared of his own shadow. And so he simply pointed the horse toward the sun. Horse calmed down. He hops up on the horse, and everybody's like, wow, this is an impressive kid. So he names the horse Bucephalus. And Alexander and Bucephalus were together for the rest of really both their lives. Rode him into battle, and then terribly sad when Bucephalus eventually died in battle. And then honestly, it wasn't too long after that when Alexander died. So kind of neat story of boy and man and horse there. So yeah, anything else that you guys think is really cool or interesting that you'd want to make sure people hear?
They made him a pharaoh when he conquered Egypt. I mean, that's pretty cool.
So that's the other thing, and everybody thinks about Persia, but again, if you look at a map, he dropped down into Egypt, which is where, again, we get Alexandria. He drops down into Egypt, and he goes into this temple, and when he comes back out, the local priests there claim him to be the son of a god. They claim him to be the son of Zeus. He gets made pharaoh. Eventually, he gets made great king of the Persian Empire. So absolutely worthwhile being called the Great. So lots of great stuff there, gentlemen. It was so good to have you on the show.
Thank you.
And we'll look forward to seeing this one come out. Thank you for listening to Rostra. You may check out all our episodes on Spotify and follow us on social media at GarenJCL. That's at GuerinJCL.